Independent work time is inevitable in an upper elementary classroom, but it can sometimes be a little tricky to manage. Over the years, I have sort of tweaked how I do it and have a few methods that work really well to keep kids on track while I meet with other students. If you're new here, I'm Rachel Vincent, and I love sharing ways to help teachers simplify their classrooms and their teaching. Today, I'm going to take you into the classroom and show you some of my systems and routines that I use for both ELA and math as students are working independently and I am working with other students.
So for my ELA must-do slides, I have just a variety of them, and this is where I actually, because we have more time for our ELA block as far as must-do time, so I put their tasks here that they are expected to do, and then their may do. And then, so it just kind of depends on what we're working on. Like this week, everyone is working on writing, and there's not a whole lot of extra we're doing as far as must-do tasks, but there's always like unfinished work, catching up on work they haven't done, or IXL is always a thing. Sometimes I assign them a lesson, and sometimes if it's just like this, it's a recommended lesson. I did start adding this little line here just because students were, I don't mind them moving around the room at all, but they were not getting their work done, so I kind of backed them off a little bit just so I knew that they were at their seat focused on these things, which tend to be graded, whereas IXL is not. And then of course these are typically our may-dos for ELA. For math, I have a must-do list, but not necessarily a may-do, because typically this last task can kind of go on, like they can continue to play Book It, or IXL I might put last, so that they can just continue to do lessons. Sometimes instead of a Book It, I have different Google digital assignments for them to work on that go with the skill we are doing. So that's how I do our math must do. So we use IXL for both language and math this year. Last year and the year before was just language, and we used Dreambox for math. This year we're using it for both. So that is a program that my school purchases. I love IXL, but it is very expensive to pay for on your own. So if your school or district doesn't purchase it, I would not recommend going out and spending that much money on a program. I just don't think as teachers we should have to do that. But it is a great program. I love that I can assign lessons that go along with what we're learning in class, like I do with math and even some of our ELA skills. I love that I can find skills that go straight with our standards. It's very skill-based, and I really like the data I get from it. I can pinpoint where students are, what they should be working on, what they've missed. But again, it is a very expensive program to pay for on your own. I think it's like $200 or $300 a year, and that's just a lot of money to ask of out of our personal pockets. Like, I definitely think it should be purchased for by your school. So if you're able to like ask, maybe your admin will help you pay for it, but that's what we use for a lot of our may-do like work on IXL. Another thing I'm doing a lot more with math is finding Book Its that go along with our skills. You can assign Book It as a homework, so then and share the link with your students. I do it through our Google Classroom. So that way students can work on Book It independently, and it's not like a class-wide competition. They're just working through the program or the game independently, and they love that. I do that for study guides and things like that, assign it as homework, and it just sort of gives them an extra incentive to practice. And then I will link a lot of digital, especially with math, digital components that come with a lot of the resources I purchase on TPT. That becomes part of our may-do, and so that way I'm not having to like make a bunch of copies for students, and it just is a little bit easier. Some things I make copies, like today's multiplication coloring sheet was a copy, but I try not to do a ton of copies just because we already do a lot in math and it takes a lot of paper. So the checklist came about this year because I'm trying to hold my students a little bit more accountable during their must-do, may-do time. A lot of students will, they might like get stuck in one of these areas, and so this is to just kind of help them move through it. I have math down here because there are typically certain lessons, and again, students just haven't been always completing them, or I just wanted a way to kind of hold them a little bit more accountable with their scores. So this week, because we're doing that narrative writing, that's always going to be up. Some of them are spending the entire class time that they have to work, like 45, 50 minutes on it. So I'm having them put the time that they finished, just so I know, like today we started about 9:15. So I know this student finished at 9:33, a decent time. A couple of them worked until 10 o'clock. So when I check in with them on Fridays, I will be able to kind of have a conversation with them about why it's taking them so long to get their work done. If I assign them a lesson, I go ahead and put it on here for IXL. If not, they do a recommended lesson, and then 80% is always. And then I'm having them put here if they have unfinished work or not, just so when I send this home with parents, parents know that they are still playing catch up or not getting their classwork done. And so there's just sort of documentation of that. The must do tasks, I'm having them just write how long they worked on it. So, 5 minutes reading a book. She probably did Cursive first, then went book shopping. And then just so I can see kind of what they're doing during their May do, because somebody like her, she gets her work done all the time and then has a lot of May do time typically, where some kids don't ever get that. And then, like I said, for math, it's on the same paper, but I'm just putting their codes. And then for Thursday and Friday, they'll do a recommended lesson, just so I know what lessons they're working on and are getting 5 lessons done each week for both language and math. And this just goes in their classwork folder. I will put a link of this copy down below so that if you want to edit and make this work for you, you can. I also have this customized for students. Like some of my students have to do an Amira lesson where it's like reading aloud to a computer program, and so they do those 3 days a week. So I have marked off which days they should do it, or if they get pulled out, I have some days blocked off for them. So I'm not holding them accountable. On Fridays, they have to turn this into me. So I will kind of glance through, and if I see a lot of blank spots or something off with the time, then I'll like pull them and have like sort of a one-on-one conference with them real quick, just to kind of check in with them, like, hey, why aren't you getting your work done? What's going on? Why is it taking you so long to do this type of thing? It's just another piece of accountability. So on the back of their folders, I'm not going to show you the whole thing, but I have this printout of their names. It was an editable document that I got from TPT. I'll link that below as well, that I can put their names in and have it print their names. So we put it in the back of our folder, and this is where they practice their names to begin with for their cursive practice. And then part of their must do, after we have a good solid amount of time practicing our names in cursive, they can work through the different cursive lessons. They have a piece of paper that goes with it for each lesson, and then it's a video lesson that I post in Google Classroom for them to pull up and watch the video and practice. And they just turn these in, and I just kind of look over them. It's really just more of a practice skill than actual teaching them, just because, one, I don't have time in my day to actually teach them cursive. They actually learn it in 3rd grade, and 4th grade just kind of reinforces it.
What activities do you have your students work on during independent time? Let me know in the comments below. And if you're looking for more information on how to structure your ELA and math block and balance that independent and whole group instructional time, check out the video that's on your screen now.